Part 6. My Love Simulation with Them. Author, Chiudeo Udazi. Chapter 51. Ujizi Hongzia looked surprised. The answer Nang Xiangxi gave was exactly the same as what her mother said in the novel. Then she asked several questions from different chapters. But Nang Xiangxi was still able to answer casually, without feeling stuck at all. What kind of monster is this? Ujizinga, who had made a mocking sound just now, looked at the library book in his hand with a blank look on his face, a little doubtful about life. She asked the question more than a dozen times, but Nang Xiangxi could always repeat the passages she said word for word. Nang Xiang-san is so awesome. When Hongzia Ujizi next to her returned the library book to Nang Xiang, her clear voice was full of surprise. Is this the strength of being number one in the national deviation value test? No big deal. Faced with Yiji Hongxia's disbelief, Nang Xiangxi just responded casually. No, it's already amazing, right? Sitting on the chair, Yiji Zinga's mouth twitched. Your memory can be said to be at the level of a monster. Can you believe it? Just by briefly flipping through the book, you can remember everything above. This is too exaggerated. Are you right? Lonely. Itaki Hoshige turned his attention to Goto Kazuri, who had been silent. Hey, Goto Ichiri, who was suddenly called out, was panicked for a while, and then he opened his mouth and said, well, I think, it's not bad. Among the memory fragments she obtained, Nang Xiangxi not only had a terrifying memory, but his learning ability and practical ability were both beyond the reach of others. Therefore, regarding the memory ability displayed in Nang Xiang, she was actually not as surprised as everyone else. Huh? Is it okay? Goto Ichiri's plain answer was beyond Ichiki Hoshika's expectation. But Nang Xiangxi on the other side didn't care about this. He put the library book back, raised his head and said, actually, compared to such trivial matters, I actually have other things I want to discuss with the store manager. It's such an insignificant thing, you guys, you can easily get on TV just by relying on this memory skill, right? Yiji Zinga rubbed his temples. Is this the world of genius? She really didn't understand at all. But since there are still problems in Nang Xiang, if you have any questions, just ask them directly. Yiji Zinga sat down again and spoke. I'm going to have an outdoor performance soon. Is there anything I need to pay attention to? Nang Xiangxi spoke. Is there anything I need to be careful about when performing an outdoor performance? Yiji Zinga touched his smooth chin, thought for a while, and finally shook his head. There is nothing to pay attention to. Shimokitazawa Commercial Street is essentially a pedestrian commercial street. If you plug in a speaker and effects device here to perform, the Japanese patrol police will actually not care. I have to say something that needs attention, probably the nervousness you feel when you go on stage. Although he had been teased a lot by Nang Xiangxi, when it came to business, Ichi Hoshige still had a serious attitude. As you said before, you only played the guitar for more than 2 hours. Almost. It's completely different to formally perform on stage for others to practice casually, so I only have one suggestion. Yiji Zinga raised a finger. Don't be nervous. Yes. Don't be nervous. This may sound simple enough. But in fact it is very difficult. Even for some well-known bands in the industry, some members will be nervous and perform poorly when they go on stage. And the probability is not low. I understand, thank you store manager for your suggestion. Nang Xiang nodded thoughtfully. I'm actually a little surprised. Looking at Nang Xiang and nodding, Yuji's Hixinga couldn't help but said, anyway, you have such a strong learning ability, why don't you practice more and then perform in the open air? It's not in a hurry anyway. There must be some reasons why I have to do this. Nang Xiangxi smiled. He couldn't tell the other party directly about the character card of Queen of Rock Goto Ichiri, right? Whatever, When he met Nan Xiang, he had already made up his mind, and Yi Jizinga did not continue to persuade him. She just yawned, holding a carton of strawberry milk, and asked, "Speaking of playing in the open air, have you decided which piece you want to play?" She was quite curious about this. The music for the performance. As soon as Yi Jizinga raised this question, Nang Xiangxi was really stunned. Yesterday, he was busy with Yamada Ryo's If line, and he really hadn't thought about this issue in depth. To be honest, before picking up the guitar, Nang Xiangxi didn't have much interest in music. In addition to studying, I usually study. Listen to music? He's done nothing of the sort. He has no impression of today's hot rock music or other songs. Therefore, Yi Jizinga's sudden question really made him unable to answer it. But soon, Nang Xiang, who was conducting a thorough search in his mind, came up with a piece of music that he was very familiar with and could not forget at all. "I've already decided on the songs I'm going to play," Nang Xiang answered when he got the answer. "Really? What's the name? Which band's music is it from?" Yuji Nuzinga was interested and asked a question. "It's not a band's song." Nang Xiangxi shook his head. "To be precise, it should be an original song by a friend of mine." Original song. Ichiki Hongxia, who was helping Nan Xiangxi clean up the dishes, turned her head and twitched her ponytail slightly. "What's your name?" They ended the band and just got on the right track recently. They finally passed the test of their sister and were ready to go on stage to perform, which happened to be their own original song. At this time, I heard that Nang Xiangxi also had some original songs. Of course, I was a little curious, and at the same time, I felt a little bit competitive. On the other side, Goto Kazuri, who also lowered his head to help clean up, was also a little curious. His ears perked up and his eyes secretly looked towards Nang Xiang. Then, she heard Nang Xiangxi's voice. "It's a song written by some of my friends, and it's called I Don't Want to Die in Loneliness." Bang! The crisp sound of a dinner plate sliding down. "Huh? What's wrong? Lonely?" Hearing this sound, Yi Jizinga looked back in confusion. But at this time, Goto Ichiri could no longer hear clearly what Ichiki Hoshige said. All she could think about was what Nang Xiangxi said just now. "I don't want to die alone." That is not. Is it the track in the vague memory she obtained a few days ago? Why does Nango-senpai know this? She looked at Nang Xiang blankly. The huge shock left her speechless. Chapter 68. Regret Guitar in Life, 4100 words. The memory of spending time with Nang Xiang and realizing the dream together with the band that ended suddenly came to mind. It is a secret that Goto Kazuri has never mentioned to outsiders. It belongs only to her. After all, the content of these memories is really embarrassing in a sense. Although Goto Kazuri usually has a tendency to have delusions. I often fantasize about becoming a national rock queen and performing in a Budokan. But, living with others, falling in love, getting married, and even having children in the end, this kind of memory is really hard for Goto Kazuri to talk about. If there are no unexpected circumstances. Being timid, she should keep her head down and keep this secret deep in her heart. But what did Senior Nang Xiang say just now? I don't want to die alone? Isn't this the song hidden in the extra memory in her mind? Goto Ichiri closed his eyes. She clearly remembered that this song was sung at the end of her performance at the Budokan, sung to Nang Xiang. A bold idea that had appeared in my mind countless times came up again. Is it possible that Senior Nang Xiang also has those scattered memories like her? A strong desire emerged from Goto Ichiri's heart to pull Nango Toki aside and ask. Yes. Pull him away. Ask him about his memory. A look of seriousness and confidence gradually appeared on Goto Kazuri's beautiful and timid face. My love simulation with them. Author, Chiudeo Udazi Iway. Chapter 52. 1 mile, you can do it? She thought so and raised her head. Then. What's wrong? Lonely. Huh? Ah, it's nothing. Itakazinga's strange expression suddenly appeared in front of him. The lofty words and ambitions he had just felt disappeared in an instant. Goto shrank his head, hid his eyes behind his bangs again, and lowered his head in a low voice to answer. Forget it, forget it. Goto Ichiri touched his little head. Sharing memories is impossible just by thinking about it. It must be just the same name. Anyway, it must be the kind of song with the same name that sounds completely different. There are many songs with the same name in this world, which is not uncommon. Occasionally, accidents like this happen. Anyway, if you have expectations for something as vague as memory, you will definitely be disappointed in the end. Ever since I was a child, I don't know how many times I have experienced this kind of disappointment. That's right. After comforting himself repeatedly, Goto finally regained his composure. By the way, loneliness, do you want to go and listen to it? Nangxiang's outdoor performance. Itakazinga's words came again at an inappropriate time. Goto Kazuri, who had just managed to convince him, the monster named curiosity in his heart began to wreak havoc again. Go and have a listen? Maybe if you just listen, maybe everything will be answered. Just go listen and see. Yes, just go listen and see. This was what Ichiri Goto thought in her heart, and she longed for it so much, but her words came out like this. I won't go. There's still work to do in the store. Is this really still the case? My cowardly self said something completely opposite to what I thought in my heart. Goto Ichisato firmly grasped the dinner plate at hand. I really haven't changed at all. An indescribable sour feeling rose from my heart. Nothing changes, nothing changes. She was still so timid, still so scared. Fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear that the final result will not be what you thought. If nothing is accomplished now, maybe nothing will be accomplished in the future, right? I'm really hopeless. Goto Ichiri's eyes lowered behind his bangs were full of disappointment. This disappointment is not directed at others, but at myself. Disappointment with myself who was too timid to contact others and afraid of failure. She was silent, putting away the plates on the table slowly, and then turned to go upstairs. But. Snap. Why? Someone held the palm of my hand. Goto raised his head in surprise, and his clean and beautiful eyes were revealed from behind his bangs. Goto-kun, if you can, I hope you can come and listen. The person holding her palm had a handsome face and a gentle smile. He had just gone upstairs and returned to Nangxiang. Me. Goto opened his mouth reluctantly. Goto-san, don't you want to come and listen? Although it's only for one day, you can still be considered my teacher. I want to show you the results of my practice. Nangxiang Shi tilted his head. Under the light, his facial features were somewhat deep, but his eyes were surprisingly clean and gentle. Goo. That's why it is said that beautiful men are really. Goto Ichiri, who was full of rejection just now, reluctantly opened his mouth. I understand. I agree. Goto didn't know why for a mile. When faced with Nangxiang's request, she not only couldn't refuse, but she had no intention of refusing at all. As long as it was Nangxiang's request, she felt that no matter what it was, she would willingly agree. And, Senior Nangxiang, did you see what I was thinking? Goto raised his face subconsciously and looked at Nangxiang's face. The other party is still the same, with a calm expression that makes it difficult to see clearly. Thanks. After getting Goto Ichiri's consent, Nangxiang nodded and let go of his hand. Hey, Nangxiang, isn't your enthusiasm for loneliness much higher than ours? Behind him, Ichizinga's dissatisfied voice came. Have it? Nang Xiangxi was stunned for a while. He really didn't pay much attention. Just seeing the somewhat disappointed expression on Goto Ichiri's face just now, he felt inexplicably that he couldn't let him leave like this. As for the enthusiasm Ichi Hoshige mentioned, he really didn't notice it. Of course. Itaki Hoshige looked back and forth at Nango Tokiyu, who was wearing light pink sportswear, with half of his face hidden under his bangs. At least you won't ask me so gently to go to your outdoor performance, right? How can it be? Nan Xiangxi smiled and waved his hand. I treat everyone with the same gentleness and kindness. Where did the store manager go? And you are the benefactor who lent me the speakers and effects. Of course I will never forget your kindness. Tisk. Yi Jizinga ignored this sentence. She could indeed hear some warmth in Nang Xiangxi's words. But there was a clear gap between this weak enthusiasm and the warmth in his words to Goto Ichiri. Although Goto Ichiri was very slow and did not notice this. But Zinjuji, who has been working in the service industry, can clearly feel it. There is a clear gap between Nango's attitude towards Goto Ichiri and other people. Just like a match and a fire, there is a very obvious difference. This made Yi Jizinga even start to doubt. Did this guy in Nangxiang have his sights set on Goto Ichiri from the beginning, and then found an excuse to come to Fangxing? However, after spending these 2 days with each other, Yi Jizinga could probably understand that Nang Xiangxi was not a bad person. Calling him a bad man or a scumbag is just ridicule at best. Let's take a closer look. Yi Jizinga decided to remain silent for the time being and continue to observe Nang Xiangxi. If Nango Toki is indeed a good person, then Ichiki Hoshige will naturally not object to Goto Kazuri being with him. But if Nang Xiangxi is really that bad man who plays with girls' feelings, then Yi De knew that seeing Ge would never hold back on him. The effects pedals and speakers are not too heavy. Even in Nangxiang, one person can actually lift it easily. But when it comes to outdoor performances, it's not just Ichi Hoshika who comes out. Even Miss Pa, including Itachi Hikaru and Goto Ichisato, came out curiously, wanting to hear what the original music of her friends from Nango was like. The effects status is okay. The speakers are fine too. As the sound engineer, the Paladi plugged in the output line, and then asked Nang Xiangxi to briefly move the guitar strings with a pick. After listening to the sound, she nodded with satisfaction. Next time, please continue to cook for me, little brother Nang Xiang. Miss Pa smiled at Nang Xiang with her eyes narrowed and made an okay gesture. Of course. Nang Xiang thanked him, and then looked down at the guitar in his arms. Regret in life guitar. To be honest, he has never used this thing to play officially on stage. Thinking of the evil effects of this thing before, Nan Xiang felt a little nervous. But it only happened in a moment. Because to put it bluntly, he is too poor. If there was one thing in the world that could stump Nang Xiangxi, that is the disease of poverty. Therefore, it was impossible to leave this guitar unused in Nangxiang. So, what to do next? It just so happened that at this moment, the enthusiastic Ijishi Hongxia was also standing by and said a few words of support. There will be an outdoor performance here later. Since it's free, everyone please come and watch it. We don't charge money. Please come and take a look. Ujizi Hongxia's opening also attracted the passers-by walking next to her. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My love simulation with them. Author, Chiudeo Udazi Iway. Chapter 53. It is a weekend, and as Shimokitazawa is a fashionable shopping street as famous as Akihabara, there is naturally a lot of traffic. In addition, the four of them, Hikaru Itaki, Kazuri Goto, Hoshige Itaki and Miss Pa, are cute and pretty enough, and standing together makes for a beautiful sight. This naturally attracted many pedestrians. Seeing this scene, Nan Xiangxi opened his mouth and couldn't help but glance at Yi Hongxia. He thanked her so much. Yu Hongxia was simply afraid that the regret of life guitar would be too aggressive, so she even made a special trip to help him gather the passers-by. What an angelic character. This should be enough, it hurts. Sister, what are you doing? Ichiki Hunka, who didn't realize what she had done, returned with satisfaction, but was hit directly by her sister's hand knife. This is the first outdoor performance in Nangxiang. Yi Zinga stared at his sister helplessly. When you called so many people over, didn't you consider Nangxiang's psychological quality? Aren't you afraid of doing bad things with good intentions? Yes. Many newcomers will subconsciously feel nervous when they take the stage for the first time and face the gaze of the densely packed audience. This is inevitable. Yu Hongxia attracted so many listeners. In a sense, it actually increased Nang Xiangxi's mental pressure. I didn't think about that at all. Apparently realizing that his behavior was a bit rash, Yu Hongxia opened his mouth. But, it seems like Nang Xiang senpai is fine. Godu Kazuri, who had been silent for the whole time, hesitantly pointed to Nango Toki, who was standing on the steps a head taller than the surrounding audience. When Nang Xiang held the guitar sideways, his expression did not change at all. There was no nervousness on his face, nor was there any panic typical of newcomers. But when he looked at the guitar in his arms, he seemed to have an inexplicable tangled emotion. Confused. Why bother? I got the guitar and it's no problem at all. I've already thought about the songs I want to play, and the speakers and effects have been debugged. In this case, what's the point? Itaka felt strange because the tangled expression on Nang Xiangxi's face gave people the feeling that he was not holding a guitar, but a nuclear bomb. What are you doing? Nang Xiang. Yi Jixing finally couldn't help but speak. Nang Xiang, now that you have got the guitar, you can just play it. What are you still hesitating about? As soon as the words were spoken, Nan Xiangxi on the stage seemed to have come back to his senses. He was still hesitating, but he looked at her helplessly, and then finally pressed the chord with his fingers, ready to start playing. And it was during this moment that Hongxia Ichiki, who always cared about others, couldn't stand it anymore. Sister, don't rush, Nang Xiang sang. What do you mean, don't rush him? Idczange, who was hugging his chest, was really incomprehensible at this moment. Didn't you see the expression on his face just now? People who don't know thought he was holding a bomb instead of a guitar. That's right, you play the guitar, just play the guitar. Why do you still look like you're holding a bomb? Is it possible that this guitar can also blow up her Idizinga? She didn't believe it at all. Just as Ichizange was thinking this, the sharp guitar sound on the stage was already booming along with the output of the effects processor and speakers. What, isn't this a pretty good performance? Listening to the guitar sound ringing in his ears, Ichi Hoshige closed his eyes comfortably. As for showing the expression just now, She paused mid-sentence. The guitar sound that blasted loudly in her ears seemed to be not only blasting in her ears, but also blasting in her heart. She opened her eyes blankly and looked around with astonishment. She was obviously standing in the crowd. But under the guidance of the guitar sound, there is still an indescribable feeling of loneliness and melancholy that comes to mind. Life is an island. The city is the sea. And she is now floating on the sea. She is lonely. Nang Xiang, wait a moment. Yi Jixinga opened her mouth in shock, and the first thing that came to her mind was the sentence. A bit evil. But her voice didn't come out yet. The next second, her entire consciousness was overwhelmed by a raging ocean of melancholy and loneliness. And on the other side, Godu Kazuriya, who had remained silent, widened his eyes in disbelief. Because she has heard this song. Exactly the same as in memory. Chapter 69. Thousands of brocade trees, 4,000 words. The guitar roars, stretched to hollow notes. On weekends, I went to visit a pedestrian street square, which was supposed to be a noisy place. But when the fierce guitar sound completely sounded, the originally noisy place returned to silence in just an instant. Everyone subconsciously raised their heads and looked at Nan Xiang, who was just standing on the steps, a head taller than them. Steps for outdoor performances. This is undoubtedly a very shabby performance stage. But for some reason, Nan Xiang just stood in that place. It's like the center. Ijishi Hongxia, who half raised his head, opened his mouth. She couldn't understand. It was obviously the first time for Nan Xiangxi to perform outdoors, and he was just a novice who had just picked up the guitar. Why is there such a thick and solid typhoon? It can easily attract people's attention. This kind of typhoon that is so thick that it can easily capture all the listeners would be impossible to have if it were not for the actual performance that has been tempered. And it is visible to the naked eye, and Yujizi Hongxia can also feel it. Nan Xiangxi's guitar skills, which were already quite good, actually improved again at this moment. With each stroke of the chord, one can clearly feel his progress. The guitar roars. There is a tearing hollow sound. The fierce guitar solo took her breath away. But why does the guitar sound so intense and clean, sound so thin and lonely? My heart was squeezed by the sound of the guitar. Yujizi Hongxia muttered to herself incomprehensibly. Yes. She could recognize the song I Don't Want to Die Alone, which had a heavy lead guitar component. A long piece of solo. Fierce sweeping chords. A large roaring artificial sound. Obviously the combination of these things should give people an extremely intense and passionate feeling. But why? Why does the voice that is so intense and even deafening, similar to the inner cry, sound so lonely and weak? Yujizi Hongxia couldn't understand. Just as she didn't understand how Goto Kazuri felt when she wrote the song in the simulation. Yes. She couldn't understand. But that doesn't mean you can't empathize. The voice like a sea of loneliness had already caught her heart before she knew it, and kept falling. In a trance. Yujizi Hongxia seemed to have seen someone, a girl who was alone. She was walking on the road, alone. She sat at the desk, alone. For a while, there was a hazy moment. Itaki Hongxia felt as if she had become that single girl. In this world, she did not learn the drums. There are no friends like Goto Kazuri, Yamada Ryo, and Kita Ikuyo who care about him. My sister is busy with band activities all day long and has no time to take care of herself. No friends, no topics to talk about. I purposely brought something I liked to school, but in the end I couldn't find anyone to share it with. The cold desks and chairs in school have always been with me. Seeing her classmates chatting happily, she wanted to join them. But in the end, he still chose to sit in the chair in a daze, awkwardly comforting himself in his heart. The excitement belongs to them. I have nothing. The self in this world did not create the band. After graduating from high school, I hurriedly found a job under the urging of my parents, and gradually became depressed under the whipping of society. After get off work, I could only stay outside and eat a simple warmed store lunch. The future seems to be an unreachable term for me. After hastily solving the problem of fullness, I returned home exhausted and said I'm back to the cold and empty room. My love simulation with them. Author, Chiudeo Udazi. Chapter 54. I always thought that I could endure this dark and lightless day. But until he reached out and turned on the light, I found two lonely shadows under the incandescent lamp. One is his own shadow, and the other is himself. It was only then that she finally couldn't bear it anymore, hugged her knees and sobbed softly. But the only thing that could respond to her was the endless night and the empty room. It's so cold here. So lonely. Who can find me? The scene in front of me gradually faded. All that was left was that Yi Jihongxia kept shouting in her heart. But here there is nothing but deep darkness. There was just the indescribable loneliness that was still churning in my chest. Next moment, the clean guitar sound blasts in your ears. It really exploded. The haze of loneliness is broken. The dark sky has color. The music that was low and depressing just now has undergone a 360-degree change. A man endured it to the extreme, and finally let out a roar of unwillingness and struggle. I'm right here. Who can notice me? Chords. When Nangxiang brushes the chords continuously, the volume of the guitar is under the output device, and the tone is getting higher and higher every section. It was as if his dead heart started beating again. The suppressed emotions that had been accumulated before completely burst out at this moment. The booming guitar sound is impossible to ignore. The soaring tone rekindled the originally dead emotions. The turbulent sea of loneliness is evaporated. Everyone raised their heads at this moment. They can feel the emotion in the guitar sound. Stop ignoring me. I don't want to be held back by fear anymore. I don't want to die alone. Buzz. Like someone shouting in his heart. The artificial hollow notes are drawn out very long in the last section. The song is over. The audience was silent for a long time. After a long time, the first warm applause sounded. And it's like applause is contagious. Then came the second and third sounds. The audience burst into applause. Even as the manager of the Mangsing Performance Hall, I have long listened to Ichi Hoshi's songs played by countless excellent rock bands. At this time, I couldn't suppress the emotions welling up in my chest and clapped my hands. No way. It has nothing to do with the level of appreciation, nor does it matter whether you have deliberately learned guitar, learned fingering, or learned various guitar techniques. The sound pouring out from the guitar at hand in Nangxiang only gives people a feeling that simply does not need to be described with various words. Beautiful. If we say that the first half is extremely depressing, it is indescribably beautiful in melancholy and loneliness. Then the second half is enough to make people burn all over, the beauty of unwillingness and struggle. It's really evil. Itakazinga clapped his hands while looking at Nangxiang, who was walking down the steps. She really can't understand it now. It's obviously just your first performance. How can a kid like you have such an outstanding and powerful performance? She wiped the tears from her eyes and spoke to Nangxiang dissatisfied. Although Nangxiang's playing skills have improved, that is not the reason why he plays this piece so perfectly. The most important thing is the tempered typhoon, which fully made up for the shortcomings in Nangxiang's performance. Is it so exaggerated? Nan Xiangxi, who had just walked down the steps, glanced at her and spoke. Of course. Didn't you see it? Looking at Nangxiang's expression, Yuji's Hixinga couldn't help but point around him angrily. It wasn't just her who couldn't control her tears just now. Even many passers-by and listeners around had tears in their eyes just listening to it. One passerby even exaggerated so much that he burst into tears on the spot. While his face was full of regret, he kept shouting. Keiko, I'm sorry for you, why should I bother you? I don't love Hanako, Yuko, and other women at all. I only like you. Keiko. Forgive me, Keiko. It's you I love. After listening to the performance, this passerby left the scene while shouting, and he was so excited that he didn't know where he went. This performance is really too powerful, both in terms of front and back. As for Yi Jizinga's words, Nangxiang could only smile helplessly. The typhoon the other party mentioned was naturally not his thing. He turned to look at the toolbar. Love stops here, go to Kazuri, Queen of Rock, study card. Using Kazuri Goto, Queen of Rock, study cards, you will briefly gain all the understanding of music and the hard-earned experience of going on stage by Kazuri Goto, who was known as the Queen of Rock in the past. All I can say is that she is indeed the woman who was hailed as the Queen of Rock and Roll in the second episode. After using Kazuri Goto's study cards, he felt as if he had become the rock star who dominates the Japanese music scene. He is a national guitar player who specializes in LV5 guitar, a guitar technique that no one in the same era can match with his painstaking efforts. Just by using this learning card, he can sense the atmosphere on the stage and how to master and inflame this atmosphere. Being able to detect the joy and anger of the audience, sensing changes in the aura on stage, and mastering and utilizing them is what Typhoon is. This is exactly the case, even though his musical specialty is only LV2. But it can also easily heat up the atmosphere. Various understandings of music and advanced guitar fingering knowledge are constantly blending in his mind, and he learns and absorbs them without any pressure. Just playing for a few minutes. When I was in Nangxiang, I heard the sound that kept ringing in my ears. Your specialty music has been slightly improved, your current level is LV2. Your specialty music has been slightly improved, your current level is LV2. Although in the end it still stayed above the LV2 specialty level. There is still a lot of time left on the Goto Ichisato study cards. Nangxiang felt that at this pace, it would not be long before his guitar level would go from the amateur level of LV2 to the professional level of LV3, which is the same as Ichiri Goto's current level. By that time, maybe he can form his own Typhoon without the help of Goto Kazuri's study cards. Ugh, it's not just that. Miss Pa blew her nose, and with tears in her eyes, she also made a curious comment, "Little brother Nangxiang, who is your friend?" The song just now was also very incredible. Yes. This was the first time she heard such an infectious piece of music. It's as if the creator of this song himself has experienced loneliness and low self-esteem that ordinary people can't imagine. This. Nangxiang, she laughed dryly. It's not easy for him to answer this question. Because I Don't Want to Die in Loneliness itself is a song in simulation. It was a song created by the hard work of all the members of the band whose music style has become fully mature. It even became a national hit song in Japan for a time. Coupled with the Evil Life Regret guitar, it is natural for it to have such appeal. If it's not easy to answer, there's no need to answer. You can deal with the audience over there first. Yijizinga obviously noticed Nanxiangshi's hesitation, and she said this thoughtfully with a cold face and a warm heart. After the performance just now, many audience members are already curious about Nangxiangshi. They have not left yet. Apparently they still have some questions they want to ask. Thanks. Nangxiangshi smiled and nodded, turning around to deal with the oncoming audience. These people's questions are actually not difficult to answer. They probably asked him if he would perform outdoors again in the future. Some people also wanted to add his line number and ask him for an autograph or something. Regarding these interpersonal matters, Nangxiangshi is also very familiar with it. However, Nangxiang didn't notice it when he was dealing with the audience in front of him. Standing behind him was Goto Ichisato, who was wearing a pink sportswear pleated skirt. At this time, his eyes were shining. No, that's right. This is the song. If she was still hesitant before, now she is completely convinced. Nangxiangshi definitely has the same memories as himself. Even the other party's memory is much more detailed than his own. There is such a thing in the world. Goto Ichisato's fingers intertwined and rubbed uneasily. Senior Nangxiang actually has the same memory as him. Also, that is to say, the fact that I gave birth to a child for Nangxiang Senpai in my memory, is, also true. My love simulation with them. Author, Chiudeo Udazi. Chapter 55. Her mood became more and more aroused. An indescribable courage surged from his chest. She wanted to step forward and ask now. How have you been lately? Is the memory clear? Why do you have these memories but don't want to face me? Senior Nangxiang, do you still like me as you did in those memories? I'm going to ask. Be sure to ask. With this thought in mind, Goto took a deep breath to gain courage and took a step forward. This time, no one can stop her. Yes, no one. Senior Nangxiang. When she finally arrived at Nangxiang, she was just about to speak. Then, bang! The sound of people pushing through the crowd suddenly came from behind her. A girl in a red and gray uniform, whom Goto Ichiri didn't recognize at all, jumped into the crowd and raised her hand in front of her Nango Senior. Hey hey hey! A carefree, energetic voice. It sounds so good. What was the name of that song just now? Can you sign it for me? The fair-haired girl swayed her beautiful hair, blinked her delicate and beautiful red eyes, and smiled and held Nango Toki's shoulder in front of Goto Ichiri. Ignoring Goto Kazuri, who had finally worked up the courage, she looked at Nangxiang, smiled, and took the initiative to speak very familiarly. My name is Nishiki Kishu, what do you think? It's a good name, right? Just write your signature on, just write it on the strap of my backpack. By the way, what's your name? She was as energetic as a fire and quirky. She raised her pretty face and smiled at Nangxiang. Chapter 70. Admiration Level Simulation Object Nishiki Kishu, 4,200 words. The blonde-haired girl squeezed into the crowd. Completely different from the gloomy Goto Kazuri. She completely ignored the looks from passers-by around her, took off her backpack with a smile, and handed the signature pen to Nangxiangshi. That beautiful and fair face attracted the attention of many people around her, and also made Nangxiangshi feel a little surprised, not because of the other person's amazing beauty. It's more because of the prompts that the system pops up in my mind. You have discovered a new simulation object, Nishiki Kishu. New mock object? Nangxiangshi couldn't help but take a closer look at the girl in front of him. Smooth short blonde hair slides down her smooth neck, straightening her delicate facial features. The ends of her hair are slightly bent inward. The left temple hair is neatly tied up with a bright red tie, exposing her fair ears. But perhaps the most attractive thing is the smile on the other person's face that is always slightly bent, as if there is no trouble. And she didn't have the shy look that ordinary girls have when someone looks at her. When she saw Nangxiang, she looked over. She also smiled flirtatiously and made a yeah gesture towards him. Nangxiangshi. He didn't say much, he just took the signature pen handed to her and left the name Nangxiangshi on the strap of her backpack. Oh, it turns out to be the boy from Nangxiang. His handwriting is very beautiful. Speaking of which, I have a friend. She wanted to say something else, but was interrupted the next second by a clear and cold voice, Qianzu. Nangxiang looked at it subconsciously. It turned out that at some point, a girl with black shoulder-length hair had separated from the crowd. Her cold black-haired beauty, which was completely opposite to Nishiki Kishu, was eye-catching. And as mentioned above, at this time, those very beautiful and bright purple eyes were staring at the blonde girl with cold emotions. Ahaha, Takina, you came just in time. I was just about to ask Nangxiang to sign an autograph for you. I do not need. Hey? You said it's not necessary. I just listened to the Nangxiang guy playing and the one who cried the most was obviously you. Nishiki Kishu made a dissatisfied sound. You shut up. Being stabbed in the back by her companion, the black-haired girl known as Takina turned a little red. Then she lowered her head and bowed to Nangxiangshi. I'm very sorry, I am Inu Takina, my friend has caused trouble for you. Fine. It would be great. Inu Takina breathed a sigh of relief. They originally came to the Shimokitazawa area to purchase cooking ingredients for the children in the orphanage, and during this period they met Nango's outdoor performance. Nishiki Kishu, who was outgoing, immediately squeezed into the crowd with the intention of watching the fun, so she couldn't leave and could only stand where she was, guarding Nishiki Kishu. Now the outdoor performance is over. We should go, Qianshu. Hey? I still want to talk to Nangxiang brother again. You must think so too, right Takina? You were crying so hard just now. Nishiki Kishu pouted her lips cutely and made a dissatisfied sound. I didn't cry. It was just sand in my eyes. Inu Takina's face turned red after her companion repeatedly poked her sore leg. She raised her hand and pointed in a strong tone, Kinzu, go outside and wait for me. TCH, boring. His best friend pouted with dissatisfaction and finally turned around and left. Seeing her leave, Inu Takina finally breathed a sigh of relief and apologized to Nango again. I'm sorry, this rare open-air performance was ruined by Qianshu. It's just a trivial matter. On the contrary, I think Miss Nishikiki is cheerful and very cute. Thanks. Nangxiang's unexpected generosity made Inu Takina breathe a sigh of relief, and at the same time, her beautiful eyes furtively glanced left and right. After confirming that Nishikiki Kishu was not around, Inu Takina carefully handed over the backpack. Can you also sign your name for me? No problem, where do you sign? Well, here, behind the backpack. Inu Takina pointed to the place. Good. Nangxiang she put pen to paper again, and it was still in straight print. But it was at the moment when he put away his pen that his iconic hee-hee laughter sounded again. As expected, Takina still wants to ask Nango for his autograph. It's really not candid and not cute at all. The eccentric Nishiki Kishu suddenly appeared from behind Nangxiang Shi, laughing and mocking his companions for their lack of candor. Inu Takina's originally fair face turned red instantly. But the matter had been exposed, and she could only glare at Nishiki Kishu, who was snickering behind her when she was huddled in Nangxiang, and asked in a low voice. I wonder when Nangxiang-san will perform outdoors next time. I should be doing activities here recently. As for the time, it's probably around 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. All right, thank you very much. After saying this, Inu Takina stretched out her hand and grabbed Nishiki Kishu's ear. It hurts, it hurts. It hurts. Takina. Nishiki Kishu patted Inu Takina's fingers. You won't have a long memory otherwise. Wait a minute. Takina. I still have something to say. I love you. Brother Nangxiang. I will come to listen next time. Wait a minute, Takina. Let me compare your feelings. It hurts so much. Nishiki Kishu, whose ears were being dragged and whose hands and feet were still struggling, heard her lively voice spread far away. Separate the crowd. Inu Takina was very dissatisfied when she saw the blonde-haired girl. There was no one around her. She frowned and spoke with some concern. The doctor clearly said that you cannot exercise strenuously due to your current condition, and you should not go to crowded places. It's okay. Didn't the doctor also say that? After escaping from Inu Takina's fingers, Nishiki Kishu still had a hearty and happy smile on her beautiful face. If there is anything I want to do recently, do it as soon as possible without any regrets. Category. After the other party said these words, Inu Takina fell into silence. The pretty face that was preaching solemnly just now had a much darker expression. Qianshu, I'm sorry, Oh, it's nothing, Takina. Nishiki Kishu first stretched out her hand to put the loose hair behind her ears, then stretched out her hands and hugged Inu Takina's waist with a smile, and held her in circles. Always thinking about these things, happiness will slip away. Black hair and blonde hair flying. Jinmyo was as happy as an elf. But, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. Putting Inu Takina down, Nishiki Kishu put her finger on Takina's pink lips and did not allow her to continue talking. Inu Takina. Seeing Nishiki Kishu, who was rarely laughing and joking and looking serious, Inu Takina could only nod, sighed, and sat down with him on the steps beside Shimokitazawa Square. The two of them watched the pedestrians coming and going. After a while, Inu Takina spoke again. Qianshu, is there anything else you want to do? Is there anything else you want to do? This question temporarily stopped Nishiki Kishu. She thought about it seriously, then touched her head hesitantly, showing an embarrassed look. Oh, when it comes to what I want to do in the last period of time, I'd rather fall in love, and then I'll just watch what I want to see after watching it, movies and stuff. It would be great if Takina could always be by my side. Then Nishiki Kishu hurriedly waved his hand as if to deny, of course, I just thought about it. He, who wants to fall in love with a short-lived ghost? Let's fall in love. These words from her best friend made Inu Takina fall into deep thought while watching the people coming and going. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My love simulation with them. Author, Chiudeo Udaziiwe. Chapter 56. It feels very difficult to complete. Nishiki Kishu, who was sitting next to her best friend, also raised her profile. Just think about it briefly. It's hard to like someone. Getting others to like you is also difficult. And she doesn't want a relationship to end in vain and hurt others. There's not much time left. Perhaps still affected by the sound of the guitar in Nangxiang, the blonde-haired girl still seemed to have some regret in her bright red eyes as she murmured to herself. And just on the other side, thousands of Nishikiki, Inu Takina. Silently muttering these two names in his heart, Nangxiang rubbed his temples after having finished dealing with the audience. As one of the vast number of travelers, he has some impression of these two names. Chisunishi Kiki is one of the heroines from the anime Licorice. Similarly, Inu Takina is also one of the heroines of the anime Licorice. Unlike traditional animation, Licorice does not have a male protagonist, it is a yuri drama. The main line of this animation tells the story of a group of Japanese teenagers and girls called Licorice who fight against illegal crimes. Among them, the daily life of Licorice is mainly told from the perspectives of the heroine Nishiki Kishu and the other heroine Takina Inu. To put it bluntly, Licorice is actually an animation about cute girls deepening their feelings and understanding each other, and promoting the wonderful relationship between girls. If it was just like this, Nangxiang she would still be able to accept it. But as said above, in addition to the usual cute scenes of Nishiki Chisuk and Inu Takina interacting in Licorice, there are also plots of young girls fighting against illegal crimes. Although I can't remember the specific plot clearly in Nangxiang, the crimes mentioned here really refer to crimes. What blew up the Tokyo Tower? Tokyo Tower is the Tokyo radio tower, resold weapons and started a gun battle with criminals. As long as you can think of real-life battles with live ammunition and easy bloodshed, Licorice has them all. And this is inconsistent with the worldview of the daily world that Nangxiang she currently lives in. Looking at the direction Nishiki Kishu and Inu Takina left, Nangxiang she estimated that the so-called Licorice in the anime probably did not exist in this world. Because in this world, Tokyo Tower still exists and was not blown up like in the original work. In the same way, if the profession of Licorice really existed, it was impossible for Inu Takina to let Nango Toki touch her backpack so easily. You must know that in the original animation, Licorice's backpack has a series of functions such as concealing firearms and being bulletproof. But just now when he took over the backpacks of Nishiki Kishu and Inu Takina, he fumbled with them. No so-called bulletproof devices or hidden compartments for hiding firearms were found. It's just an ordinary, cute-looking women's backpack. Nango she estimated that in this world, Nishiki Kishu and Inu Takina were just ordinary girls. Thinking of this, Nangxiang she turned to look at the column of the simulated partner in the love simulator. Just as he thought. In addition to his two older sisters and Goto Kazuri, the simulated object has a new name, Nishiki Kishu. When Nangxiang clicks into the detailed status bar. Choice, Nishiki Kishu, status, admire. What kind of favorability is this? Seeing the state of Jinmukyan Su, Nan Xiang felt a little surprised. You must know that at the beginning of Goto Ichisato's simulation, he only had a slight admiration. However, Nishiki Kishu was immediately filled with affection, jumping to the level of admiration. Nang Xiang's thoughts were racing. It can be seen that Nishiki Kishu really likes his playing. The favorability of admiration, converted into reality, the other party should be regarded as his fan. If this were simulated, wouldn't it be Tianhu's opening that could be easily won in one go? How difficult is it for an idol to fall in love with his fans? A happy ending can simply be achieved. There can't be any more accidents, right? Thinking of this, Nan Xiangxi turned off the love simulator and turned his eyes to the other side, the person he cared about more. Goto Ichiri has fallen silent now. She didn't know or understand. Why did it go so poorly even if I just wanted to ask Senior Nang Xiang a question? The first time she mustered up the courage, the sudden appearance of the store manager disrupted her thoughts and made it impossible for her to regain her courage. The second time she mustered up the courage, a beautiful blonde girl suddenly jumped out from outside and blocked her throat when she wanted to speak. I feel like I am a character in a novel. Behind her, there is a malicious author who keeps writing to prevent her from moving forward and bullies her unscrupulously. Goto Ichiri was so numb that he didn't know what to say. The so-called saying that you can make great efforts at one go only to fail again and again. The courage she had treasured in her chest was really used up at this moment. She has always been just a social terror. It is not easy for someone like her to muster up courage twice. Sure enough, don't forget it. She let out a small sigh, and an indescribable masochistic mood emerged from her chest. Frankly speaking, what does Nango-senpai have to do with the memories in his mind? Just because of a person like myself. Just as she lowered her head and thought. In his ears, a voice suddenly came. Goto-san. Why? Goto Ichiri raised his head in surprise, only to realize that Nan Xiang, whom he had been thinking about all this time, was already standing in front of him. You probably had something to say to me just now, right? But you were interrupted. Hey? The sudden darkness made Goto Ichiri's expression dull. She couldn't help but look at Nan Xiang in front of her. Apart from concern, there was no extra emotion on his delicate and clean face. He just looked over. But that was enough for Goto Ichiri. And Ichiri Goto also discovered it. It seemed that Nang Xiangxi could notice every time he flinched and every time he hesitated. This was the time the store manager interrupted himself. It was the same when I was hesitating whether I should listen to his outdoor performance. When you are confused, hesitant and at a loss, Nang Xiangxi would always stretch out his hand and give himself a push when he was most timid and confused. This time, too. Looking at Nang Xiang's extended palm, the frightened girl opened her mouth. This time she did not hesitate, lowered her head and said in an extremely clear voice. I have something to say to Senior Nang Xiang. Courage surged out of the dry heart once again. She held Nan Xiangxi's hand. She would never hesitate again. Chapter 71. Ichiri Goto Can't Refuse, 4,100 words. The Stars Performance Hall is not large in scale and is only slightly famous in the neighborhood. Because of this, working at Stars is actually not that busy. On weekdays, Goto Kazuri only needs to stand behind the bar and pass drinks to customers, that's all. But today, something seems different. Since Goto Kazuri seemed to have something to say to Nango, the other party did not rush home, but chose to wait at the Stars. But just waiting in the Stars seems a little uncomfortable. After all, the girls who finished the band were all working. During the waiting period, in order to make up for Yamada Ryo's vacancy, Ichiki Hashika made a special trip to let Nango Toki temporarily take over the position of the other party's front desk invoice clerk. But once this decision was made, Yi Zinga regretted it. The reason is also very simple. A rather peculiar landscape appeared in stars. Probably because the open-air performance in Nangxiang just moved a group of people. Some of the audience did not disperse and followed Nangxiang Shi into the performance hall. And it must be mentioned that this part of the audience has a large proportion of women. She must be a female college student from a nearby university or a female white-collar worker relaxing on weekends. This group of big sisters were not short of money. They just followed Nangxiang Shi into the Stars performance hall, bought tickets, ordered a drink, and gathered around Nangxiang Shi, who was sitting at the front desk, chattering without words. No intention of listening to the band. Most of these older sisters, who are fashionably dressed and generally good-looking, are the audience attracted by the outdoor performances in Nangxiang. Most of them are not interested in rock music or bands. Instead, they are very interested in Nangxiangshi. Itizi Zinga, who was behind him, was so angry that he almost picked up a broom and drove away these big sisters who were holding bowls and not eating. Fortunately, Yudi's Haihongzia and Miss Pa stopped him in time. Otherwise, Stars will become the first performance hall in Shimokitazawa that actively kicks out its guests. Please keep your receipt. After sitting at the front desk, Nan Xiangxi, who was counting the bills in his hands, had handsome and deep features. This dazzled several female college students who were huddled in the back. They secretly took out their mobile phones and took pictures. Even if Ajishi Hongzia reminded them not to take pictures secretly, they just said sorry and didn't use the flashlight to take pictures at all. Stopped and flashed. There were also a few bold white-collar elders who hinted in and out of their words that it would not be so hard to be alone in Tokyo in Nangxiang. If they were short of pocket money, they could go to their sister's house and have a detailed discussion. My love simulation with them. Author, Chiudeo Udazi Iway. Chapter 57. To be honest, Nangxiang didn't pay much attention to these words. He was minding his own work while smiling and laughing with these big sisters. Even if he was dealing with such a large number of people at the same time, he seemed to be able to do so without any panic. He has a very good mind, and the speed of counting the bills is naturally fast and accurate. It only takes one time to go through the cash register, which also made the big sisters around him exclaim a little. His idea is much simpler. These white-collar workers and college students are really stupid and have too much money. They don't even listen to music when they go to the theater. They spend 1,015 yen to buy tickets, and they spend enough money to buy 2 drinks outside to buy drinks. To listen to his nonsense here. This money is really good. Sitting at the front desk, silently calculating the bills, Nangxiang sighed in his heart, wondering if he would open an exhibition hall when he got rich in the future. And on the other side. That's awesome, that. Ujizi Hongzia, who had already finished the work at hand, couldn't help but glance in the direction of Nangxiang Shi and opened his mouth. She spent a long time helping her sister in the Stars. But to be fair, there was no way she could receive so many guests without any pressure like she did in Nangxiang. And is the proportion of girls among the guests too high? The always elegant and mature Miss Pa next to her also blinked in disbelief. Can a handsome guy be so popular? Isn't this speed of attracting bees and butterflies too fast? If we follow the usual business hours of Fangxing, there should not be many people in the store at this point. This guy. Itakazinga asked for strawberry milk in a depressed manner, and spoke seriously. If any of you fall in love with Nangxiang in the future, you have to be careful. If that guy wants to change women, the woman in his bed will be the same every day, and there will be no the same woman for 365 days. That's what she said, but her eyes were always fixed on Goto Kazuri. This too direct gaze made Goto, who was carrying the bucket, stop moving for a moment. She shrank her head and did not dare to make a sound. It happened that at this time, Nangxiang Shi, who had already finished counting the bills, temporarily finished his work and brought a few drinks over. Nangxiang-san, what is this? A few female customers just forced it on me. I couldn't drink it even if they gave it too much. You drink it? Nang Xiangxi held a glass of lemon juice in his hand and sat down while drinking. Giving too many gifts. Miss Pa and Yuji Hongxia opened their mouths. Is this person really here to work? Why are there still customers bringing drinks to part-time employees? The two of them couldn't accept this naked and different treatment. There were no male customers who thought it was hard for the two of them to order drinks for the two of them. Can a boy really do whatever he wants if he looks good? Just when the two of them were feeling a little psychologically unbalanced, Ichi Hoshige on the other side came over holding his hair. Nang Xiang, did you make a mistake in this calculation? How is that possible? Mental arithmetic has always been my strong point. Yet, looking at the bill details, Yuji's Hixinj, who was originally dissatisfied with Nang Xiang's efforts to attract bees and butterflies, couldn't help but wipe his eyes. After confirming that she had seen correctly, she wiped her eyes again and opened her mouth, but... What's wrong, sister? Is there something wrong with the bill? Yuji Hongxia and Miss Pa came over to take a look curiously. Then, the numbers on the bill made both of them silent. The reason is simple, because the number on this bill is the entire day's turnover of their Stars exhibition hall, and it is even more than a part. This was just a short period of time. Even if there is a bonus during weekends, this is really too exaggerated. Is there really nothing wrong? Little brother Nang Xiang. Looking at this number, Miss Pa looked dumbfounded and turned her head to ask Nang Xiangxi. I can't make mistakes in mental arithmetic within 6 figures. Nang Xiangxi checked his phone for a while and answered in the affirmative. He ranks first in the country's simulation deviation value, so he is qualified and confident to say this. Then he turned off the screen of his mobile phone and looked back with envy. Speaking of which, this number also shocked me. Store manager, is your showroom really profitable like this? As soon as these words were said, Yuji Hongxia, Yuji Xingge and Miss Pa couldn't help but look at Nang Xiangxi. At this moment, what they saw was not attracting bees and butterflies, nor was it the conductor sitting at the front desk doing nothing, but the banknotes being paid in handfuls. Seriously, little brother Nang Xiang, have you ever considered working in our store as a Liang Jiang-chan? Otherwise, you can also work as a Kita-chan. You see, Kita-chan has been busy socializing with friends anyway, so she didn't come here today. It's absolutely no problem to push her away. Wait a minute. Miss Pa, don't lose to the temptation of money at this time. Yuji Hongxia quickly blocked Miss Pa's mouth. After the elegant and mature Miss Pa calmed down a little, Yuji Hongxia wiped the sweat from her face, looked at Nang Xiang and said with some depression, Nang Xiang-san, do you know what kind of creature I think you look like now? After putting down the lemon juice, Nang Xiang turned his head and looked over. Almost like a succubus. Ichiki Hongxia gave her evaluation very seriously, and he is the kind who specializes in deceiving innocent girls. How can it be that exaggerated? Nang Xiangxi shook his head. He really didn't expect that he could actually hear the animated heroine commenting on him like this. You must know that when he traveled through his previous life, there were many crazy short essays about Lonely Rock on Tianqiao Post Bar and Station B, such as Hongxia Mom, Just Hang Around Zita, Don't Watch Waves for a Day. Strange, these classic compositions. But he never thought that he could be evaluated in this way by the central characters of these short compositions. It can only be said that things are changing. After sending those big sisters away, the only time left was to wait for Goto Ichiri to get off work. Nang Xiangxi took the initiative to greet the frightened Goto Ichisato to come and sit down next to him. He smiled and said something to ease the other person's embarrassment, while paying attention to the time. He was a little curious. What on earth did Goto Kazuri, who was usually timid and didn't even have much contact with men, want to say to him? What words made her, who had always been timid, take such initiative? It couldn't be that the memory in the simulation was leaked, and Goto Ichiri was anxious to confirm it to himself, right? Nang Xiangxi smiled and shook his head. This simulator shouldn't be so awkward, right? It was not difficult to wait for this period of time. After almost an hour, the sky became completely dark. After Nang Xiangxi helped the store sell a few more tickets, there was nothing to do in the star's performance hall. And it seemed that he knew that Nang Xiang Toki and Goto Ichiri still had something to say. Itaki Hoshige did not hesitate and simply drove away Nango Toki and Goto Kazuri. But he still said unforgivingly, "You two have nothing to do, so hurry up and don't disturb the guests listening to other bands' performances." It was already 7:30 in the evening when the two of them walked out of the stars. Nang Xiang was walking in front, 1.5 miles ahead of Goto. What should I do? When looking at Nango, who had a straight back in front of him, Goto Ichisato, who was following behind him with a somewhat hunched back, tried to open his mouth several times, but kept it closed. Although I have decided to ask Nang Xiang about my memory. But because I haven't communicated with other people for so long, I can't remember how to start the topic. Social fear is a unique feeling in my heart. What should be said here? Sure enough, Senior Nang Xiang still has those memories. No, isn't this a bit too direct? Does Nango Senpai know something about the memory in my mind? This is not allowed. It sounds like an interrogation. Ah. The more I think about it, the more confused my mind becomes. Goto Izato held his head in his hands. What to say? Please give me some advice in the future. If you say that this little girl is not talented, that's not right. Isn't this what you say after getting married? Have you ever considered calling your child Nango no Take? That's weird. Haven't you married Senior Nang Xiang yet? How could I be so stupid? When will we get married? That's not the case. Didn't they all say that they are not married yet? Ah. The villain in his heart was screaming and running around. Goto Ichiri was grabbing his hair randomly and his mind was in a mess. Then, bump. Nang Xiangxi suddenly stopped in front of him. Goto Ichiri, who was full of thoughts, couldn't dodge and bumped into him. What happened? Covering his little red nose, Goto looked at Nang Xiang in panic. Why the sudden stop? Could it be that Senior Nang Xiang guessed what he wanted to say? She studied the other person's expression carefully. After discovering that the other party still had the same clean and cheerful expression as usual, she subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was not exposed. Goto-kun, do you want to talk to me about the sudden extra memories in your mind? Well. Goto Ichiri, who breathed a sigh of relief, felt like a duck with his throat pinched. Her face turned red, and when she looked at Nang Xiang in disbelief, she quickly retracted her head and said in a low voice, Nan, how does Senior Nang Xiang know? Yes. How did Nang Xiangxi know what he was thinking? Is it mind reading? It really is mind reading, right? Or is it because you and the other person have been an old married couple for a long time in your memory, is it natural for them to have a good understanding? There she began to think wildly again. But Nang Xiangxi here looked a little funny again and said, it's not a mind-reading skill, and it's not a matter of an old couple. Then, in front of Goto Ichiri, he pointed to his mouth. Goto-kun, do you know that when you have random thoughts, you will unconsciously say delusional words? Well. Goto Ichiri hurriedly covered his mouth. My love simulation with them. Author, Chiudeo Udazi. Chapter 58. Those big beautiful eyes were at a loss, and they were scolding themselves for being such a big fool. It turns out there is no such thing as mind reading. Everything was just uttering what I thought in my heart to myself. So? What do you want to ask me, Goto-kun? After saying this, Nan Xiang quickened his steps and pressed forward step by step. Goto opened his mouth, his beautiful face was timid and pitifully aggrieved, but his steps retreated unconsciously. When Nan Xiangxi took a step forward, she took a step back. But soon, she found that she had no retreat. Behind it is a high hard wall. In front of him was Nang Xiangxi, who had forced himself into a high wall. She huddled in the corner and was at a loss, with tears streaming down her face. Didn't Senior Nang Xiang already know what I want to ask you? That's different. Nang Xiangxi approached with a serious expression. I want to hear Godu-san say it himself. Godu Ichiri's mind was completely shut down. The yellowish light from the street lamp cast a unique beauty on her fair skin. But when she looked at Nang Xiang, who was getting closer and closer, there was only one sentence in her mind as she complained that she had no future. It's over. Even if you are bullied by Nang Xiang Sr., you can't refuse at all. Chapter 72. Godu Kazuri's favorability towards him has increased, 4,000 words. It's over. I feel like even if I'm bullied by Nang Xiang Sr. here, I can't refuse at all. Godu, who had a blank mind, could only think of this. She could only watch the other person getting closer and closer, and then snapped. It hurts. Godu covered his head and squatted down. This is a lesson to you. Why? After hearing this, Godu Ichiri looked up in confusion. Hey, what? Taking back the gesture that was more like popping his head, Nang Xiangxi was really helpless and funny. When you are reluctant, you have to reject it loudly, understand? His voice paused and then continued, this time you also meet a perfect young man like me. What if you meet those bad men who like to play with girls' feelings in the future? What are you going to do? Well, although he thought it was a bit strange for Nango to call himself a perfect young man, Godu Ichiri did not refute him and just lowered his head and said Godu-san, do you understand? Are you just I am not a fool either. Godu Ichiri, who felt that he had been completely underestimated by Nangashi, finally couldn't help but muttered, the same method cannot work for me twice. Yes. Although she, Godu Kazuri, is a social phobic, she is not an idiot. The move just now caught her off guard at best. If she tried it again, she would definitely not be fooled again. Is that so? Nan Xiangxi blinked his eyes, then approached and lowered his voice, then Godu-san should agree to date me this time, right? Why? The sound of hey was prolonged and deformed, and Godu opened his mouth wide and looked at Nango, who said this in disbelief. Hey, what? Faced with Godu Ichiri's panic, Nang Xiang was a little amused. I have always liked Godu-kun, but it would have been a bit presumptuous to propose it before. But since you and I have the same memories, it is natural for me to take the initiative to date you, right? Ah, is that so? Godu Ichiri was stunned on the spot. After dating, we will get married. Hey? It's too fast, isn't it? Godu Ichiri was so frightened that he sat down on the ground. But Nang Xiangxi had no intention of giving in, and continued to speak seriously. Let's choose the wedding venue at Ili's house, right? And what kind of wedding style do you prefer? A Western wedding dress or a white wedding dress from Japan? What about the child? The name will be as you said in Ili, it's called Nang Xiang no Bamboo. I. The sudden and terrifying progress of the marriage made Godu Kazuri not sure how to answer the question. How about it? Just say one thing, Ili. After we get married, our child will be called Nango no Take, okay? Hey, I still feel it's too fast. Stop talking nonsense and promise me now. The voice suddenly became firm and urging. Okay, the little girl is not talented. After hearing Nango's words, Godu Kazuri, who was originally confused and hesitant, answered subconsciously. Then Godu heard Nang Xiangxi's long sigh and his voice that said he hated iron and steel. Didn't you say that the same trick won't work on you again? Misichi Sato Godu. Hearing this, even Godu Kazuri already understood. She actually fell into Nang Xiangshi's trap again. A blush appeared on her face. Under the light, her fair and pink face had an indescribable charm, and she didn't know what to say. It was obvious that just now he was speaking with righteousness, and he was talking big words to Nang Xiang, saying that he would not suffer a second loss. The result was the second attack when facing Nang Xiang. Still completely unconscious, he ran into it stupidly. This is simply a fool being caught, and the fool is home. She hesitated, not knowing what to say. And Nang Xiang didn't expect anyone to open up the topic. He asked simply, after this conversation, Godu-san, what have you learned? That. Godu Ichiri opened his mouth, hesitated for a long time, and then said something in front of Nang Xiangshi, don't just agree to someone else's proposal. Nang Xiang covered his face, and then exhaled heavily. Then, he stretched out his finger and poked the forehead of the elm-headed man in front of him, and said angrily, don't be led away by other people's rhythms. Oh. Do you understand again? Nang Xiangshi asked her. That, I don't understand. Nang Xiangshi. He shook his head and turned to leave. When looking at Nang Xiang, who turned around to leave, Godu Ichiri, who hid his eyes behind his bangs, stretched out his hand, as if he wanted to retain him. But when the words came to his mouth, they turned into hesitations again. She didn't know how to speak, so in the end she could only watch Nang Xiang walking further and further away. There was a feeling of loss welling up in my chest. Then, follow me quickly, Godu-kun, why are you standing there so stunned? Nang Xiang stood far away, stopped, and greeted Godu Ichiri. Okay, here I come. Why? He looked at Godu Ichiri, who was still disappointed just now, but immediately turned red after hearing his words, and trotted towards him with extremely light steps. Nang Xiangshi sighed slightly. This pink-haired girl is really just like the one in the simulation. She makes people feel like she is easy to bully, but at the same time, she feels inexplicably affectionate. They both continued to walk one behind the other. Nang Xiang didn't open his mouth, and Godu didn't open his mouth at all. She just stared at Nang Xiangshi's shadow secretly, and followed his shadow step by step. After a while, she heard Nang Xiangshi's voice suddenly speak, Godu-san, can you tell me in detail about the things that are unmemorable in your mind? Good. Listening to Nango Toki's words, Godu Kazuri quietly told Nango Toki the details of the memory that flashed in his mind word for word. And when Nang Xiang listened to Godu Ichiri's words, he probably felt confident. It seems that simulating a happy ending with a score of 90 or above will synchronize part of the simulation memory and transfer it to the simulated object. But that small part is not all, it seems to be just some scattered fragments. And this can also explain why Godu Ichiri's favorability towards him increased so suddenly. Nang Xiang didn't expect that the love simulator actually had such a function. In a way, it's just awesome. Yes. Isn't it great? Life is simply going smoothly, and I am always surrounded by beauties with a value of 7 or above. It is simply perfect. But Godu-san. Godu Kazuri, who was still talking about the memory fragments, subconsciously raised his head and looked at Nang Xiang. I already know that you have the same memories as me, but dash. Godu raised his head subconsciously. Under the streetlight, Nang Xiangshi's back was straight, his eyes were clean, and his voice was gentle and steady. I also hope that you, Godu-kun, can be serious and think clearly through your own mind, instead of just relying on the thin memories in your mind and sudden impulsive decisions to think that you have a good impression of me. That kind of thing is not good impression, let alone love, it is just impulse. Nang Xiangshi tilted his head. Rather than making a hasty decision, I hope you can use your own thoughts to recognize, judge, and think you like me, instead of those vague memories in your mind, it's just too empty. His words silenced Goto Ichiri. But that's exactly what happened. If you are dealing with some girls who are flirtatious and want to have some fun with you, you are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My love simulation with them. Author, Chiudeo Udaziiwei. Chapter 59. Nang Xiangxi might treat the other party with the same frivolous attitude. But for Goto Kazuri, I couldn't have that impetuous mood when I was in Nangxiang. Because he always knew how hard the pink-haired girl in front of him was secretly working. She tried hard to change herself, tried hard to change her fear of society, and followed others to pursue her dreams. She has low self-esteem but is strong, timid but yet so kind to everyone. Just relying on the memory shared by the simulator, he coaxed her into becoming his girlfriend after trying so hard to change. That was too simple for Nang Xiangxi. Because Goto Kazuri doesn't even know how to say no to others. But, this kind of thing is too despicable, and it is also irresponsible to Goto Kazuri. I couldn't do it in Nangxiang, and I couldn't do it. As for Ichiri Goto's charm, this became even clearer when I experienced the simulated Nangxiang. In the simulation, Ichisato Goto has an astonishing beauty that can reach a level of 9. While his body is plump, his soft, timid, and submissive character made him sink in the simulation for a time. But just because I value her and respect her, Nangxiang people don't just focus on pure physical desires. The same goes for liking someone. That's why Nango took the initiative to persuade Goto Ichiri not to be affected by the memory in the simulation and to make the right choice on her own. If she had not relied on the simulated memory in her mind, but relied on her own mind to think seriously and worry seriously, she would still have come up with the answer that she liked herself. Then Nang Xiangxi will also seriously consider and treat her favor. This is a necessary attitude. When I was in Nangxiang, I thought I was not a good person. But he's not the kind of bastard who only relies on simulated memory, takes advantage of Goto Ichiri's weak heart, and then enjoys her body shamelessly. Goto Ichiri said nothing, she just raised her head subconsciously. From Nang Xiangxi's words, she felt something more sincere. Just like she would cherish others and treat them well. Nang Xiangxi also did not look down upon her feelings for such a dark corner of the campus, but chose to face them and take them seriously. I understand. Nangxiang senpai. The previous confusion and worries disappeared in Nang Xiangxi's words. Goto Ichisato bowed towards Nangxiang. That's good. Let's go. I'll take you to the station. Sensing the change in Goto Ichiri's mentality, Nangxiang smiled and said no more. Some words are enough as long as they are mentioned appropriately. If you mention them too much, others will only think that you are preaching. Goto said nothing more. Only this time, she didn't deliberately follow Nang Xiangxi one step behind like she did just now. She moved forward, her fair face flushed under her bangs, and she quietly took a step closer. Under the light of the street lamp, the back view of two people walking side by side. Further and further. Goto Kazuri's home is completely in the same direction as Nangxiang's. After dropping her near the station, Goto Kazuri bowed to Nango and waved goodbye. Today, I really thank you for taking care of me today. Senior Nangxiang. The voice was still weak, but it was clearer than any words spoken today. Nothing, see you tomorrow. Nangxiang reached out his hand and waved at Goto Ichiri. Looking at the other person's back, Nang Xiangxi shook his head. After saying those words just now, Goto Ichiri's abnormal favorability must have dropped, right? Well, it's natural to think about it. Although Nangxiang felt a little regretful, he did not regret it. At least he didn't violate his principles. But, that's what I said. Looking at Goto Ichiri's disappearing figure. Nang Xiangxi still couldn't hold back and used data detector on the opponent. His vision gradually changed. At the same time, data about Goto Ichiri emerged. Name, Ichisato Goto. Appearance, 8, Sports, 4, Academic ability, 3, Specialties, Inferiority LV3, Social Anxiety LV2, Learning LV1, Guitar LV3. Current impression of the host, deeply attracted, very concerned about, longing for, and in love. System evaluation, she cares about you very much. She can no longer look away from your every move. She seems to have some kind of love for you. She is shy by nature and has decided to change for you. As long as you take the initiative, the other party will also respond to you with a high probability. Looking at these rows of data, Nan Xiangxi couldn't help but rub his eyes. Originally in the column of the host's impression deep attraction, concern, and longing, now there is an additional entry of having a love. The system evaluation below made him even more stunned. Shy by nature, she has decided to change for you. This favorability did not drop as much as he imagined. Has it even improved? Nang Xiangxi, who rubbed his eyes several times and almost brought tears to his eyes, couldn't help but glance in the direction of the station. There, Goto Kazuri, who had been talking to him just now, had just entered the station entrance, with swaying pink hair and an indescribable lightness in his steps. No. Ms. Goto. Are you serious? Chapter 73. Nishiki Kishi's 1-week simulation, 4,000 words. After sending Goto Kazuri away, he also returned to his home in Nangxiang. After thinking about it, he clicked on the remaining heart rate in his love simulator. I saw that the heartbeat value, which was originally only 930, jumped directly at this moment, skyrocketing to 1,530 points. Nangxiang was a little surprised. Just now I just talked with Goto Ichiri for more than 10 minutes. And in just these 10 minutes, Miss Goto actually contributed 600 heartbeat points to him. Based on the calculation of 300 heartbeat points per simulation, Mississippi Goto directly provided him with 2 simulation opportunities. Miss Goto, this contribution to the heart rate is too much, right? When Nangxiang opened the system prompt bar and took a look, he was shocked by the long list of "you got 30 heartbeat points from Goto Ili." But considering that Goto Kazuri's favorability towards him had increased significantly, Nangxiang suddenly felt that the increase in heart rate was reasonable. Turn off the love simulator temporarily. Nangxiang felt that the hot water was almost ready, so he got up and went to the bathroom. About 15 minutes later. After taking a shower in the bathroom, Nangxiang simply wiped his hair, washed the towel and hung it up again. He didn't use a hair dryer. The main thing was that he didn't like the hair dryer blowing on his head. After a brief sip of water, Nangxiang sat cross-legged next to the short round table. He had no money to buy a big desk, so he could only rub the things left by the previous tenant. A low table, a wardrobe, a bed, a small external stove, and a few spots of mildew on the walls. That's all this humble one-bedroom rental has. The learning conditions are quite difficult. Nan Xiangxi glanced at the too simple environment of his home and knew that making money should probably be put on the agenda sooner. Fortunately, during the outdoor performance yesterday, he specially asked the Palady, who was usually editing and recording videos, to help with the recording. Wait until tomorrow to go to her place and upload the finished product to the internet. This can be regarded as a way to make money. However, if online videos want to be profitable, they must reach a profit-making contract with the video website. This again has a long way to go. Thinking of this, Nan Xiangxi shook his head. I still don't want to worry about these troubles for the time being and concentrate on studying. Leave all your worries behind. Nang Xiangxi picked up the textbook on the table and continued to preview. Almost an hour later, Nan Xiangxi breathed out a sigh of relief when he returned from swimming in the ocean of knowledge. Your academic ability has increased slightly, and your current academic ability is 8. As expected of me, I can make progress every day. Nang Xiangxi nodded with satisfaction. Your specialty, narcissism, has increased slightly, and your current narcissism level is LV2. One thing to say, this system prompt is really annoying. It can mistake self-confidence for narcissism, and the simulated memory will also be leaked. Can there really be such a stretched system? Nang Xiangxi drank the water in the water glass directly, and then turned on the love simulator. Love simulator. Bind user, Nang Xiangxi. Appearance, 9, Sports, 6, Academic ability, 8, Specialties, Cooking, Happiness, LV4, Learning LV4, Narcissism LV2, Lies LV2, Music LV2, Medical Skills LV2, Self-Discipline LV1. Simulator evaluation. A handsome and somewhat narcissistic young man with a promising future is a rare and popular commodity among women of all ages, including some men with extraordinary sexual interests. A quick glance at the data shows that there is not much change, except that the simulator evaluation below has an additional line of somewhat narcissistic annotation. Nang Xiangxi ignored this line of annotation, which was obviously fabricated by the system, and continued to look down. Currently available simulations: Nango Shiho, Nango Yoho, Goto Ichisato, Nishiki Kishu. Number of simulations remaining: 1 My love simulation with them. Author, Chiudeo Udazi Iway. Chapter 60. Only one simulation left. Frowning his eyebrows and looking at the simulation number at the bottom, Nang Xiangxi remembered. The last time he simulated a happy ending for Goto Ichiri, he only had one simulation opportunity left. After the simulation, he used Ryo Yamada's if root card, which essentially consumed props and did not count the number of simulations. It makes sense that there is only one chance left. Do you want to simulate a happy ending in a simulation opportunity? Will it be a bit difficult? Nang Xiangxi touched his chin and quickly shook his head. Wrong. It won't be that difficult. He also simulated a happy ending with Ichiri Goto's score of 92, and Ryo Yamada's happy ending with a score of 89 in one go. I can be considered as familiar with the simulation. Furthermore, Nishiki Kishu was the first girl who had an admiration towards him from the very beginning. This is simply a buff that comes with Tianhu's start. One chance to simulate the perfect happy ending. Is it too much? Having said that, Nang Xiang felt that it was not as extreme as imagined. Thinking about this, Nang Xiang didn't hesitate and opened the simulation menu simply. Start simulation? Yes. Current simulation remaining times, 0. When Nang Xiang sank his consciousness into the simulation. After leaving the stars, when you returned home, you followed your usual habit of looking narcissistically in the mirror. Even if the learning environment you are in now is very bad, you have never given up your optimism without any basis or reason is your greatest strength. The advantages. Sitting in front of the short round table, you are in a good mood as you recall today's perfect outdoor performance. Not only because of today's successful outdoor performance, but also because of the blonde white-haired girl you met during the performance, Nishiki Kishu. As you are naturally sensitive to interpersonal relationships, you soon realized that hidden under the sunny and cheerful appearance of the other party was an undisguised admiration for you. She and her companions seemed to be very impressed by your performance. I was interested and even asked about your next performance time. You told them about your recent activities in Shimokitazawa, and then watched them leave. At this time, sitting at home, you became very interested in this woman who suddenly broke into your performance and admired you, so you decided to 1. Actively prepare for tomorrow's performance and hope to attract them with your good looks and guitar skills. It is definitely not a problem to continue to develop in depth with the other party. 2. It's too tiring to practice guitar all the time, why not learn to relax? 3. If you like her, you must get her only by knowing yourself and your enemy. Can you be victorious in every battle? Prepare for tomorrow's performance and at the same time prepare to follow the blonde girl. 4. Simulate in person. Putting aside the fourth item where there is no daily choice of simulation times, the first three are enough to surprise Nang Xiangxi. Because no matter how you look at it, the first three items are not very serious. Especially the third item. I started following you right away, are you serious? Are you sure this isn't a crime? Nang Xiangxi felt that sometimes the love simulator could really be renamed a crime simulator. This third option is still the same death option. Nang Xiangxi focused on the first option and the second option. The second option is for him to switch to learning to relax. But according to the behavior of the previous system, if you study in the simulation, then it is estimated that the follow-up will be all about learning. And the system text in front of the love simulator has almost made it clear. Chisuk Nishikiki was interested in his guitar skills. Focusing on studying and alienating the guitar is completely detrimental to the relationship with Nishiki Kishu. The second option can also be passed directly. Nang Xiang touched his chin. Selected the first option. Nishiki Kishu herself has a good impression of him. It is better to actively prepare for the performance here, and not to make extraneous things and make some showmanship. It is safer to continue to increase the other party's favorability through the performance. You have decided to actively prepare for tomorrow's outdoor performance. You are very confident in your appearance and guitar skills, and you feel that attracting her, who is cheerful and lively, will not be a problem at all. Your understanding of music has deepened. The next day, you continued to perform in the square of Shimokitazawa. Due to your active preparation, this open-air performance also achieved gratifying results and attracted many listeners. And just as you expected, Nishiki Kishu came to the scene again. She was very satisfied with your carefully prepared outdoor performance, and her admiration for you increased. But this time, you, who had been prepared for a long time, did not get too entangled with other listeners, but made a special trip to make time for her. Sitting on the edge of the bench in Shimokitazawa Square, you chatted with her very passionately. Through chatting, you discovered that Nishiki Kishu not only likes music, but she also likes movies very much. Using your own speaking skills and the wonderful movies you have seen in your previous life, the atmosphere between you has become very warm. She seems to be born with a happy spirit, outgoing and sunny, always answering questions with a smile, looking free and carefree, as if all the positive words in the world can be applied to this happy girl. In the square of Shimokitazawa, the setting sun falls on her face with a bright smile, making her as beautiful as the mythical goddess of the setting Sunday. That day, you chatted with the sunny and cheerful girl for more than an hour, and then she reluctantly left after the urging call from Inu Takina. Watching her leave, you sigh at her extraordinary appeal. Under her influence, you decide. 1. There is nothing wrong with your previous choices. Continue to devote yourself to preparing for the performance, and your relationship with her may be able to take a step forward. 2. We have been performing in the open air continuously, so we still need to learn to relax, right? 3. Don't hesitate, if you like it, you will get it. Secretly buy a locator online and follow her. 4. Simulate it yourself. Another option. Nang Xiang, who was still immersed in the simulation, was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that the option would come so quickly this time. It was obvious that he had just made the choice. There was something strange in Nang Xiang, but it was just a dense selection of options, which couldn't mean anything. Maybe it was because the other party had a high degree of favorability towards me. But 3 options, what's going on with you? Nan Xiangxi couldn't help but twitch his lips when he looked at the 3 options that were full of criminal atmosphere. Stalking a young girl? Regardless of whether this behavior is illegal, if the other party notices it, the consequences will not be simple, the favorability will be greatly reduced, right? The second option is also outrageous. Why do I love learning so much? What about love? Have you figured out your place in the love simulator? Nang Xiangxi shook his head. The first option seems to be the most reliable. Yes. Just as he expected, after choosing the previous option, he actually had a deeper connection with Nishiki Kishu in the simulation. We even chatted with each other for more than an hour. If this continues to develop, becoming lovers will definitely not be a dream. In comparison, the three options are too intense. If you want to get it, follow it. Nang Xiangxi raised his hand and continued to choose an option. 2 open-air performances, both times got her approval. There is no doubt that if you continue to prepare for open-air performances, she will definitely become your die-hard fan. You have found the direction you need to work on next and continue to prepare for outdoor performances. Everything is just as you thought. She will show up on time for every outdoor performance you perform. Standing in the back row, she will always cheer for you happily. Her excitement and unabashed love make others subconsciously I think she might be your girlfriend. After every performance, she, who is warm and generous, will take the initiative to find you and share with you her joys, sorrows, and joys of the day. Every time at this time, you would always listen quietly to what she said, interjecting a few words from time to time to make her laugh. It is very easy to communicate with you who has excellent communication skills. Her face always has a more cheerful and happy expression than usual. She smiles longer and makes more small gestures with you. She will poke your face with her finger when you are not paying attention. When you look over, she will put away her finger again and look at you with a smile. When you feel tired, she will also enthusiastically give you a special bento from Sensu-sama packed in a small box. According to her, she seems to make a living by running a certain coffee shop. And looking at her bright smile every time, you can't help but smile knowingly. Happiness can infect other people. You became friends with Nishiki Kishu. It went well, very well. Seeing this smooth development, Nang Xiang was very satisfied. It seems that reaching a perfect ending in one go is no longer a problem. Daily meetings continue. Your relationship with the blonde-haired woman has gone further. Every time you finish your outdoor performance, she will always thoughtfully hand you a handkerchief and an ice-cold drink while waiting behind you. In order to live up to her who takes time to listen to your performance every day, you are determined to continue to study guitar skills. Everything seems to be going smoothly. Chapter 74. You feel sorry, 4,000 words. Everything seems to be going smoothly. After seeing this sentence, Nang Xiang only had one thought. Thank you so much. This is not the first time Nang Xiangxi has seen this. And every time this sentence appears, what was originally a good start for Tianhu will develop into a world-shattering direction. Ken. What exactly went wrong? Nang Xiang searched for information in his mind. Was it the wrong choice? But if you think about it carefully, there are 3 options in total. The second option is to put down the guitar skills and study instead, and the third option is to follow Chisuk Nishiki in the tail row. There should be no problem at all if you choose the first, more normal option. Nang Xiangxi frowned and thought for a long time, unable to come up with a correct answer.